Welcome everybody to this O-REU grad school extravaganza. I am very pleased to bring you hopefully what will be a riveting program for you today. Right now, 3 to 4 p.m. is our usual O-REU happy hour, so this is in lieu of the happy hour. And during that time, 3 to 4 p.m., I am hoping to use that time as a opportunity for a panel discussion to give you some insights on the grad school application process. And to that end, we have a panel consisting of Professor Svetlana Sukashvili, who is online, and myself as the two faculty members. And then we've also invited two PhD students in the Material Science and Engineering department here at Texas A&M. Jalen James and Sierra Cipriani are both PhD candidates doing their work here at Texas A&M. So the outline of the program or of the activities that we have planned here is that each of these, I'm going to give a very, very brief one-slide introduction into sort of the basic information for grad school, just to sort of get your thoughts going. And after that, each one of the panel members will give a very brief, 2 or 3 or 4 minute statement, their thoughts about grad school, applying to grad school, etc. And then we'll just open it up to discussion. So it'll be an opportunity for you guys to ask any questions that you want about grad school or applying to grad school. The second part of the current meeting, which is going to begin at 4 p.m., is going to be a presentation by Dr. Shannon Walton and Marisa Johnson, who are officers here in OGAPS, which is the part of Texas A&M that manages the graduate programs. And they will be telling you about an early admission process that Texas A&M has opened up for the O-REU program. So basically a very simple and fast and free way for you to apply to grad school and have that, that answer come to you within a few weeks so that, you leave this program with something in hand. Whether or not you, decide to go to grad school or whether or not you decide to go to grad school here or somewhere else, this is a very sort of easy and cheap, free opportunity for you to, to have at least one of those grad schools lined up for you. Okay, so let's move on with the program. So I just wanted to give you very briefly just a few basics about grad school, okay, just to sort of get us all on the same page. First of all, there are two types of programs that you are likely to encounter in any sort of STEM field in science or engineering. And those are the master's programs, which include Master of Science, Master of Engineering, and the PhD program. There are others, right? So I'm not saying that these are exclusive, but these are the most common types of programs that you're likely to run into. The master's programs typically run 1 to 2 years. And most of the time, there are exceptions, but in most cases, you are self-supported, which means that you pay your own way through that. You pay tuition and fees as well as your own living expenses. A PhD is typically about 5 years long. And within science and engineering, within all the STEM fields, you should expect to be fully supported throughout that entire time on a research assistantship, a teaching assistantship, or a fellowship. So that would include a stipend that you would receive, so basically like a salary, not a very large one, but something that prevents you from having to provide your own living expenses. Fully supports your tuition and your fees, so basically you leave grad school with a PhD and no debt, okay? And this is the industry standard. Basically, any top-tier research program should provide this for you. Your relationship with your PhD advisor, who will be your main thesis advisor and your main mentor, will make or break your PhD experience. So this is obviously my opinion, but I think that this is an opinion that most likely almost everybody that you talk to will share. So I put it up there. Applications consist of a couple of components. Pretty much every application will require you to provide a transcript. Some will not require a resume or a CV, but most of them will encourage you to provide one. Most applications include a personal statement. They ask you for reference letters, and the number may vary, but it's usually around 3. Until recently, most programs have asked you to provide a GRE. So basically to take the standardized test, the GRE, and provide the score. Now, many programs no longer require the GRE, especially this year because it's difficult to take it under the current circumstances. But programs are generally moving away from the GRE. For example, the material science program, and in fact, all the engineering programs at Texas A&M do not require the GRE, at least for this year. However, since many fellowships that you might want to apply for still require the GRE, I would suggest planning on taking the GRE so that you can apply for fellowships, because that can still give you an advantage there. Finally, fellowships, they also require an application. They usually require all the same components as a grad school application, plus a research statement or proposal. Right? So in addition to all the other things, you would typically have to write a 1 or 2 or 3 page research proposal. There are a variety of fellowships that you can apply for within STEM, the most prestigious being Hertz, the Hertz Fellowship. And there are a number of other ones, including NSF, Department of Defense, Department of Energy, NASA, NNSA, and others. So I don't have a complete list, but these are all very good, high-profile fellowships that will support you, and they will also, be an honor, that you can report on your CV. Having a fellowship is good because it increases the likelihood that you will be able to work with whoever you want, right? So if you want to work with a particular faculty member and that person happens not to have research funding that particular year, then you might not be able to join their group. However, if you have a fellowship, then you're coming basically for free. You're coming to that faculty member with your own money, and so that raises the likelihood that you'll be able to work with whoever you want. That's it by way of general background. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Professor Sukashvili, who will make a few statements, thoughts of her own. I will then ask the 2 graduate students that we have here to provide their own thoughts, and then we'll open it up. This panel will open it up for your questions. So Svetlana, you want to take it? Oh, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Yes. I don't have slides. I'm going just to talk. I'm going just to share my thoughts. So what we are looking for when we are browsing through your application packages, I think it's very important for you to know our side of the story and our view on the process. We are getting tens of applications, and sometimes we need to browse through maybe 50 or 60 of them to pick a student we want. I'm basically looking for 3 things when looking at your applications. So first of all is very much obvious one and quantifiable. So this is your background, maybe scores, but not so much the scores. But overall, I'm looking at your background and prior experience, right? Is it relevant to what I'm doing, but that's not sufficient. Sometimes students who are working in the adjacent field end up to be more suitable for the project compared to those who have direct expertise in the field. And I had this experience in the past. This is a little bit a holistic approach. So scores are the scores, but overall, your experience, what did you do? So did you have some research or exposure? That's major thing I'm looking at. Did you like it? Your personal experiences, what was your achievement in research? And having said that, of course, you need to have a decent above average scores and GPA. That's basically a thing which is already in all applications which we are considering. So after this experience and background thing, I'm looking again holistically at your potential for research. And it's not a secret that sometimes research is a very special field activity, I would say. So when you are doing research, sometimes, so we encounter things which require perseverance, creativity, and things which are very hard sometimes to define, and we are looking for these things in your application. Do you have a potential? The one big thing which I pay attention to, it's, are you going to be a self-motivated student in the group? Self-motivation, that's the biggest thing, identifier for a PhD student. I need to make sure and be sure that you're excited about what you're doing and you're able to drive your project intellectually independently, right? And consult with me that we're going to drive it together. So I don't need to tell you all the time what to do. So this is the second thing I'm looking for. And finally, it's also very important, I'm looking at your application, and you shouldn't forget that I'm also trying to assess and make sure, and this is very hard to do, and very often I need to reach to you through interview. I want to make sure that you're just a good, a fun person to have in the group, that you are a good addition to the group, you're a team player, right? So that you're not going, so that you're going to be just a very nice person to have around and work with others. Other things come later. So later on, when students arrive, I assess them using different criteria. For example, so do they like the variety? Do they like to work on a couple of projects, one major one and one side project? Or are they more productive when they just devoted for a single activity only? So all this will vary, and I will consider later on. So how do we get this information? First of all, we are looking, of course, at the package or your application, and we're trying to make some guesses, some numbers are there. And then we are looking at your personal statement and your reference letters. So your personal statements and reference letters are specifically important, where we can get some identifiers and things which are not easily quantifiable and can make your application to stand out. And very often, if you are pre-selected after this preliminary screening, we will reach out to you and we'll set up a personal interview, or if you don't want me to be so formal, just a conversation. So I want to have a personal conversation with you prior to committing to accepting you to my group, and just to make sure that the assessment is right. And we also need to be a little bit modest as a research group, professors, because I think you are assessing us too. And through this interview or personal meeting, so you are also making your choice. So you ask your questions, and you make your decision whether you feel like or coming and joining our group. So another thing which I like after the initial, after I extend an offer to a student, I also like this students to reach out to my group members and talk to them about their experiences and have this conversation going between the PhD, prospective PhD students and those who are already in the group. So that's probably all I wanted to say.
Thank you. And I forgot to mention, we have one other faculty member on the panel, and that's Darren Hartle. He just joined, and it was my oversight that I didn't mention. Darren, we're doing just very brief 1 or 2 minutes thoughts about grad school and you know, what should be on students' minds. So just very briefly, and then we'll open the panel to discussion. Unmute yourself first.
I have not done that in 3 months, and this is the first time. So I had a perfect record of unmuting. Are we focused just on like the application package preparation or much broader?
Whatever you want, but you've got 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay. So if I caught Svetlana's and I agreed with almost everything she said. So I'll zoom in a little bit on the application package and things that I'm looking for there, because yes, there's a lot of other assessments that happen once I get you on the phone. But let's say we're not to that point yet. The biggest thing for me, because it's a big part of my group, is undergraduate research, which you're right in the middle of right now. So your ability, your performance in doing that, and your ability to explain it, whether it's in a written statement, is usually one way. Writing it up well in your CV or resume. But I want to be able to see, to make it first past that first bar, I want to be able to see that you have some experience in the lab, because like Svetlana was kind of alluding to, I don't have any time for somebody who I'm going to teach how to be a researcher from the very, very beginning. Like, you have to at least shown that, because there's just too many people applying. So have you shown an interest in research as an undergrad, and have you acted on that? And have you done something that you can write a paragraph about in a way that at least conveys to me that you understand what you did? If you write some crazy thing that you deserve a Nobel Prize, you probably are taking this too far. What were the challenges? What were your successes? Who did you work with? That kind of thing. So that's in a packet, putting that in your personal statement, putting it in your resume. Obviously, things like GPA really do matter. And so I know that may be not a popular political thing to say to a lot of people on the call. I don't know. But there's a very, very strong correlation between your ability to get things done in the classroom and your ability to get things done in the lab when no one's holding your hand. It's that same self-motivation that Svetlana was saying, that same self-reliance is what is a difference between a 3.0 student and closer to a 4.0 student. And so that's another big one. Those are kind of the two biggest. GRE, everyone can go retake it and get their score higher, things like that. Personal statement does matter some, but we're so used to people writing these big, ever since I was 5, like we know how the personal statement goes. But if you can really say something about why grad school is important, what it is, because there's a lot of applicants that you realize have no idea why they're going to grad school. So if you can, I think, verbalize why graduate school, why you want to do R&D, why maybe you want to be at a lower TRL scale than the people that are pumping out at bachelor's level, explaining that would be important. So maybe without going into questions, that would be some of my first thoughts, Michael.
Thank you very much. So Jalen, you want to go next? Oops, we can't seem to hear you. Not really sure what's going on. You're not muted. So how about we do Sierra?
All right. Yeah, so I guess I can walk through the application process, like what I did for my grad school application. And hopefully it will mirror some of what we've heard the professors saying so far. So the first thing that I did, based on recommendations of professors at my undergrad institution, is I identified professors at universities that I would like to work for. Then I kind of cut the universities that I was applying to based on whether, if there's only one professor there that I would really like to work for, then I don't want to put all my eggs in one professorial basket. And so after determining that, then I looked at my previous experience as well as the professors that whose work I liked, and I tried to figure out what connections there were between those things and what, how that related to my ultimate goal, after graduate school. And like Dr. Hartle said, it's important to show that you understand why you want to go to graduate school as well, how that fits into your goals. And so from that, for each school I applied to, obviously I went to Texas A&M, so I listed the professors who I was interested in working for at A&M at the end of my personal statement, and precisely what about their work interested me. And then I basically built up from that. How does my experience relate to that work that I'm interested in doing for them? Oh my goodness. And then after the listing of the professors and their work, I explained how I would be a benefit to Texas A&M, hopefully, as well as how my career goals would be achieved through working with, these different professors, as well as the different resources available at A&M. I don't know if I have very much more to say on that, because I think the personal statement for most students, your GPA is pretty much set of what you do in classes, but the personal statement is where you get kind of the flexibility. And then, like, I can't remember who said, Dr. Suhishvili said, make sure to talk to current graduate students of professors that you're very interested in working for, because I didn't have this happen at A&M, but at other schools, some of the students were very honest with me, and that kind of steered me away from certain groups or certain institutions and towards other ones. And then after I did all my visits to the different schools, which hopefully you all will get to do, I don't know how that's going to work out, I made a big spreadsheet and basically decided from that based on some numbers that I put in and different factors. So that is all that I have to say, I think.
Thank you very much, Sierra. So Jalen, let's give it another try.
Okay, so
Perfect.
Can you hear me now? Okay. It had been working. I had meetings before this and it worked, but just decided not to. But anyway, so I mainly focused on the statement of purpose or giving advice from that standpoint. And from going back and reading mine, I remember taking time to go like to a library or somewhere close, somewhere quiet, and think about and make the statement of purpose have an outline, or at least for me, writing an outline is a way that I can get my thoughts together. And the focus that I made was on things that made me a great PhD student, a potential candidate for to be a PhD student. And one of the things I want to say is that you should include any internships that you do, that you had done in undergrad or co-ops or even lab classes. So for me, I actually I didn't have research experience in undergrad, but I had a lot of internships. I had worked in oil and gas at Shell, Exxon, Mobil, and Chevron. And so that was kind of the focus of my undergrad university, was like getting work experience and being able to do that. And so one of the things that I mentioned in my application was I haven't had research experience, but I've taken lab classes where you do the research process. What I realized after looking back on those classes was that we were studying a certain phenomenon like heat transfer or something like that, and writing down the procedures that we took, what we discovered from it, and et cetera. So it was simulated as a research experience kind of. And so once I realized that, I put that in my statement. And the other point I want to mention is that when you include those things like your internship experience or lab classes and different things, make sure that you also include a relevant outcome from that. So with the internships, I mentioned that I did these things, but I also said what I learned from that experience was I essentially didn't want to fix broken equipment for the rest of my engineering career, which, I mean, people in oil and gas do much more than just that. But from what I had learned from that experience for me, that's what I had done a lot. And there was a track for like, if you're a mechanical engineer, then you do rotating equipment or fixed equipment, and you would be analyzing equipment and seeing what types of things to buy to replace. But all that to just say that I included that in the application to say that I had a desire to think deeper about what I was working on and things of that nature. So yes, those are the main things I would say. And thank the reviewers at the end. One big piece of advice I kept getting was thanking the reviewers for reading the statement of purpose. That could be like one sentence. And then the last thing I'm going to say is to list out your accomplishments on a separate sheet or a separate document, just so which you may have already done through your resume, but a lot of times your resume it has to be one page. So you might have more accomplishments that you want to go back over or didn't think about that you might want to include. So just taking some time to make a list of those things and to have that can be helpful in writing your application.
Okay, thank you very much to all of the panel members. So now we're going to do the discussion. What I propose, since there's a fair number of us here on this call, if you have a question, please type it into the chat box for Zoom. Say to whom you're addressing the question. To which one of the panel members are you addressing the question? And I will read it out, and we'll go from there. So please go ahead, and if you have questions, type them in there, and we'll start addressing them. So I know that I only just gave this directive, so people probably need some time to actually type their things in.
As they're typing, I wanted to comment and thank Jalen for making the statement about internship versus undergrad research. That's super important, and a point that I didn't make. It's maturity that I'm looking for, and undergrad research is one way to show that happens to be applied to research. But if you've gone on and had a couple of stints in industry, that's also really important too. So thank you, Jalen, for mentioning that other alternative.
Okay, so first question from Matthew Lichtenberg to Sierra and Jalen. What do you wish you had known about grad school before applying that you presumably know now?
So I guess one thing I'd say I wish I knew was how I learned. So really just taking the time to think about how you best learn things. Because you'll have to like the professors have been saying, you'll have to do a lot of independent research and like reading. And so if you have a structure or like principles to how you best learn a topic and write it down and kind of know that about yourself, that's really helpful, I think.
So when I was applying to PhD programs, I'd actually completed my master's, but I did it at the same school as my undergrad, so I didn't have to apply anyway previously. So that might kind of change my perspective compared to people going straight from undergrad. But I really wish that I had known how to read academic journal articles, because it's kind of something that nobody really teaches you, and you just have to do it a bunch in order to figure out like what they're saying. And that's a very practical thing. But but I mean, you just have to like do it every day, basically. Additionally, I wish that I had known, I learned this during my master's thesis, to write a little bit every day, like even if it's just what you did in lab that day and whether it was successful or not, because you don't want to save all your writing to the end. That might not be helpful advice now, but that's really the biggest things that impact my life now.
And one quick piggyback on that is keeping track of the things that you accomplish. Like like Sierra was saying, I've learned to put things in PowerPoints. So when I get a result, like almost immediately take a screenshot and put it in a PowerPoint and have this record of the things that I've gotten and learned, because you'll have to present it eventually. So.
Okay, next question from Adira Balzac, also to Jalen and Sierra. How did you guys find schools you wanted to apply to?
So for me, what did I do? Sierra, do you mind going first on this one while I think?
Yes, I can go first. I specifically was interested in polymer programs. So that was really the way that I searched for schools that I was interested in applying to. It was based on whether they had a strong polymers program. Additionally, like I said, looking into professors that are doing work. I mean, even if it, you know, when I first applied to grad school, I thought, oh, I would really love to work on stimuli responsive polymers. I ended up doing something different that's more related to my personal experience, but I just like would look up stimuli responsive polymers and then find papers on them and see if, you know, the author, like the professor was at one of the universities that I was considering or at a different one. Anyway, additionally, I spoke to a lot of professors at my previous school to try and figure out if they had any recommendations for programs to apply to.
For me, I would say so I was applying, it's been about 3 years now, so I'm a little fuzzy on exactly the things that I did, but I remember I was applying for aerospace engineering, and I'm material science now, doing my PhD in material science, but at the time I was looking to do aerospace, and there were opportunities with different, I believe they came from organizations that I was involved in, where I learned that, oh, they're doing a trip to a certain university, which I understand is probably not happening now, but if there are any opportunities to get on calls and different things like that, that helped a lot from what I remember. And then talking to the students once I was there. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I would speculate that most likely this fall, you guys will be hearing about a lot of sort of virtual Zoom presentations of different departments. And you know, that's going to be a good opportunity for you guys to get on the internet and get some questions answered, and also just get a feel for different places, you know, without having to travel there. Next question came from Emma Dickinson. What kind of personal qualities do you recommend highlighting in your statement? This question was not directed to any particular person, so I'll take it. I personally dislike statements that are very long. I like statements that are very short and to the point. I absolutely have no interest. You know, I might have an interest in the person's you know, personal background and history once I get to know them, but when I'm choosing a grad student, I do not have an interest in, you know, your father's influence on your interest in science and things like that. I don't care. What I care about is, are you making an informed decision, right? So everybody's mentioned prior experience in internships and research experiences and things like that. I look for that because I think that if you don't have that, you cannot possibly make an informed decision on whether you should go to grad school. So I look for that. I also look for, just a clear sense of understanding what you're getting yourself into, right? So if you are applying to a PhD program, you need to understand that you're going to be working for 5 years, under the mentorship of an advisor, right? And not, be putting into the statement, and in the first year I want to go study abroad, and in the second year I want to go do an internship at a company, and that's not realistically what's going to happen. Right? You're going to be working full time on your thesis for 5 years. So those are the sorts of things I look for. Maybe Svetlana or Darren, do you guys want to say something?
I think it's fine because the next question overlaps to a degree with this previous one, and I will take it.
Let me read it out since it is addressed to you. It's from Nadia Zaragoza to Dr. Sukashvili. How do I convey that I would be a good fit for and get along with others in the research group? Is it something I can say explicitly, or does it have to be implied in my writing?
Right. So you probably don't want to say it explicitly, but you can definitely elaborate on your experiences and prior experiences and what you like, right? So, and we can read between the lines. And the first trick is just tell what is your experience in research or working on some projects. Do you enjoy the individual, intellectually driven projects? Do you like the teamwork? Something personal. I'm looking for some personal description of personal experiences, and we learn a lot. And the second way you can deliver this message is basically get the right person to write your support letter, reference letter. And that's very important. So some applications, some students make, I would say, a mistake, and they ask a professor in class in which you performed well to write a recommendation letter. And if somebody was an excellent student in my class and I didn't have personal interactions with this person, what else can I say? I am going to say an outstanding person, earned an A, that's it, right? And these reference letters are not very much valued. But if you have really a long-standing interaction with a person or advisor in the group who knows a variety of your different qualities, so get this person to write about you. That's the way to do it. And then third, on that, don't worry about it. Just so if you make a choice and if you are chosen, so a professor, if it's an experimental group like mine, many actually professors who are doing experimental work worry about fitting to the group. And I think I might be mistaken. Those who do theory, they worry less about it, probably. But experimental work, so it's tedious. It's often involves many people, working and transferring samples and doing small, sometimes boring things. And the teamwork of being a good member of the group, just in the kitchen or in the lab work. So it's very important quality, and we will check it or we'll give opportunity for you to experience it through conversation with our students. This is the final thing I want to say. So we will connect you to our students and make sure that you feel comfortable, that you fit.
I was successfully on mute again, so I'll answer the other one and tie it into this one. I'll echo Michael's comment about long personal statements. I was reviewing one this fall, and the student went into like this long-winded, very personal discussion of like a family history event that happened and how that made them who they were. And like, I don't know, 4 sentences into this, I was like, I don't need this drama, right, in my group. So what we need to see, as Svetlana said, is personal examples, but from a professional context, right? I like this class where I had to work with this team. I like this internship where I had to do this thing. In this undergrad research, I got into this technical argument with this person, whatever. Like, keep it professional, because we're hiring professionals and we don't have time for kids anymore. Like, we need professionals to work with us to solve really hard problems. So keep your comments professional, focused, terse, and in that way highlight the qualities that you think we would want in a professional that all of us are going to fund eventually. So we're going to give a lot of our fund. I mean, in fact, the vast majority of the funding we bring in all goes to y'all. So who do we spend it on? You know, tell the story that you're the person that's going to be the best professional to sit beside me and solve this problem, I think, and do it quickly.
Next question comes from Taylor to all the current graduate students on this panel. How similar or different do your first 2 years in grad school seem compared to your peers pursuing a Master of Science, master's degree? For me personally, I have some interest in exploring the possibility of an MS, but not a PhD.
I guess I'll quickly say that it was almost exactly the same. From what I could tell with the peers that I started with, there were those who were doing their masters, and we had the same classes, they were doing research. They had to read papers, and they don't have to take like a qualifying exam, which is, there are a few requirements that they don't have to do, like writing as much in terms of taking that exam that I mentioned, or later things that they have to do. But in terms of classes and doing research and reporting to their advisors and different things of that nature, that was pretty much the same, I think.
I too thought that I did not have interest in a PhD, but here I am. Talking as someone who came in with a master's degree, granted my master's was accelerated, so I had to get it done pretty quickly. I found the expectations in terms of research as a master's student to be a bit lower than as a PhD student. And I can't speak for master's students in our program, but I feel that sometimes, I don't know if it's just based on the longer term, the longer duration of a PhD that I feel that way, or like Jalen said, are different requirements that are contributing to that. But again, as Jalen said, like MS students in our program take a lot of the same class, like we're side by side in the same classes, and do work on, at least in my group, like work on similar things to me and are in lab with me all the time. So yeah, I don't know if that helps, but that's my experience.
Can I comment as a mentor real fast? Because I don't, in either case, you know, what I want my students to do is be where they're comfortable and strong, and then push them right past that, right? Constantly. You work with them where they are, you make sure that they're strong in where they are, and then you push them to the next thing. And that's gonna happen whether you're an MS student or a PhD. It's just, I know with a PhD, it goes longer and the MS has an off-ramp. And there may tend to be students that are more obviously PhD inclined on the PhD track. They're gonna be maybe more scholastic or more curious or something. That may just kind of happen naturally, but I don't think the expectation of the program is going to be a lot different. It's going to be the same classes, because the other thing is, the reason a PhD takes 5 years and you can't magically do it in 2 is because I need 2 years to get you as good as a good master's student before I can take you to the next level. And so that growth is basically the same, whether you decide to take the off-ramp at the MS or keep pushing forward. That's my opinion.
Next question comes from Elise Harmon for the students. How far ahead should you ask for reference letters and start writing the motivation statement?
I honestly do not remember. Generally, so depending on how many programs you're applying to, you should make, what I did was I made a table for my recommenders, my 3 recommenders, and I included the due date of the recommendation, as well as what I would like them to focus on for each program, because different ones might want different things from their recommenders. And then I made sure I just kind of let the recommenders know, hey, most of them knew because I'd asked them about graduate school already, but if not, I would send them an email like a few weeks before the first letter is due and just say, I'm applying to graduate school. Here is a table. Here are the institutions as well as the due dates and what I would like you to focus on. Would you be comfortable? And another important thing to ask is, would you be comfortable writing a positive recommendation letter for me? Because if they agree to write a rec letter, but they don't say that it's going to be positive, they can write whatever they want in it. Additionally, if these people have written a recommendation letter for you before, it will probably be faster for them. So you might need to give a little more lead time if you're asking them out of the blue. Anyway, I'll stop now.
I'll just say, echo one thing Sierra said, which was to get people who will write a good recommendation for you. And I remember asking one professor, and he was like, well, all you did was get an A in my class or a B in my class or something, when I went to his office and asked him. And so I said, well, he asked, do you really want me to write this? I said, no, thank you. I'm going to go find somebody else, because he was not about to write like the best thing. And I had more experience with other professors. So.
Okay, next question from Krista Schoonover to the professors. Most schools specify that letters of reference should not be personal or character references, but speak to your ability to do research, your background, etc. Is it okay to get a reference from a professor outside the STEM field that can speak to your critical thinking, analysis, or writing skills, and also character reference? And then there's a follow-on question to the grad students. From what disciplines were the professors you sought recommendation letters from? I'm just going to very briefly chime in on this one myself. I think that your strongest reference letters are going to be from professors in STEM who have personal experience working with you. And there's going to be two reasons why they're going to be the strongest. One is because they are also advising students. They have gone through a similar kind of grad school experience, and they're advising students themselves. And so they know the most about what it takes to be successful in grad school. The second thing that I'll say is, I guess, well, that's it. That's all.
What would you add professional, like internship supervisors?
I would say, somebody who has been through grad school themselves. So if you have like a professional internship supervisor who has a PhD, has been through grad school, that will be a strong, that could be a good reference letter, perhaps not quite as strong as one coming from a faculty member. But on the other hand, if this is somebody who's worked with you and has seen how you think, how you work, and can talk about that, it can still be a strong reference letter. I would, be hesitant to recommend, asking for a reference letter for somebody who has not been to grad school, because they might not know what kind of qualities I'm going to be looking for in that reference letter.
Yeah, I think that's the closest you can get to a good character reference, would be a professional character reference. If you get outside of that, very quickly it starts to look like padding, or you couldn't find somebody. If you start, my answers are always going to be, does it look professional? And so if you start going off to your tech writing professor or something, you're getting so far away from the skill set and the attribute set that you need to be successful, that I only threw in the professional reference because I do think, if we're going to have one that said this is a very hardworking person who was very self-motivated and this and that, that could be valuable. But outside of those two, I agree that faculty is, and especially as close to your area as possible, is going to be the best.
And I would just, on the follow-up, the professors were in mechanical engineering that I got my recommendation letters from. I was mechanical for my undergrad.
My recommendation letters were from, I was co-advised, so my undergrad research project turned into my master's thesis, and I was co-advised for that. So two of them came from those two professors. And then my third reference letter came from an internship supervisor, but as a faculty here, I've mentioned that supervisor has his PhD, and he made a point in his recommendation letter to include the fact that he thought that I had what it took to be a successful PhD student. So even though it was from an internship, a material science internship, he included, that I would be successful in graduate school specifically.
Question from Greg Wong for the professors. Is it good practice to try to reach out to professors before applying to demonstrate interest, or is that frowned upon? And by that, I assume you're saying that, before you apply, you email a professor saying, hey, Professor so-and-so, I saw your research. I'm very interested. I'd like to join your group. I'm applying to your department.
So I can only answer personally that I'm very fond of those kind of communications if they're well done. So if y'all want to see behind the curtain of what our job is like, you have to realize that we get dozens of these emails per week especially from particular countries. And what that letter reads like is it's a big description of the person with Texas A&M pasted in a different font in bold and maybe in a different color with 3 spaces after where they pasted it. So they're writing form letters, basically reaching out, but what it comes across as is this very kind of mechanistic thing. If, however, a communication like that actually talks about what my website says I do and why they think that what I'm showing I do fits with their background in this internship or this undergrad research, that always gets my attention, because that meant you spent the time to look at what my group does and what I do. And again, short, right? It does not need to be more than a paragraph, but a little bit about you and especially why you think you fit with what I do. Right? Professors are all egotistical. So if you show that you think what I do is important and it fits you well, I'll give you, that would be, I think, a huge bonus. And for the right person, I'd be going and looking for their application if the letter was written showing that they would be successful with me. That's my opinion. Just please do not write some kind of common letter and then just paste in the professor's name in the 20 schools that you're applying to. That's not going to help, because we get those all day long.
I agree 100%. So if it's really well done, it can be a very efficient tool, and it could be annoying as spam if it's done at the spam level.
Spam, you said the S word, that's right. Yep.
Question from Elise Harmon, also for both professors and students. Is there a certain way you should ask for a reference letter? I think that there's already been some discussion of that. Whenever you ask for one, ask for a strong reference letter. And then when you ask for that strong reference letter, look at the response. And if somebody says, yes, absolutely, I'd love to write you a strong reference letter, that's a yes. But if they say, I don't know, isn't there somebody else? That's a no. Okay? Don't ask that person for a letter. Anyone else?
What you said in reference to the story I told a bit earlier.
I've given the answer of, all you did was get an A in my class. Like, I've given the answer that Jalen received. And it's that what I'm saying is I have nothing to say. Like, I can write 3 sentences, but that's not, and we are putting ourselves out there. We don't, it's not for free that I put my name behind yours, especially if it's in front of a peer, right? I could greatly embarrass myself if I write a recommendation letter for somebody who ends up not working out, and I should be able to make that assessment. So yeah, just ask people that know you. And if you can't go and find anybody, it's because you haven't prepared yourself well for graduate school, right? You haven't done research, you haven't been either volunteered or done an REU or something. So that's kind of a big sign to you that if you don't have anybody to back you, how have you gotten ready for this thing you're about to do? So just a little bit of a warning light. Now, since some of you are still young and you have a lot of time to make correction.
And of course, you're all doing an REU, so.
You all get to check that box.
Can I add, also if it comes, if you're early on in your undergraduate career and it comes time to apply for grad school and you're like, oh, I wish that professor that like I worked for my O-REU would write me a rec letter. When you're sending the email to ask them, if you haven't communicated with them in a while, you can remind them what you did. Like, there's no shame in that. Professors have a lot going on. Even my advisors for my master's would ask me, oh, can you provide me a list of like, what you've done since you've gotten here, just to make sure that I don't forget anything. You don't have to include that whole thing in the first inquiry email, but you can just give a sentence of, hi, I was your student from this date to this date, and I worked on this, just to refresh their memory.
I'll tell you what, though, having that in that first letter, if you write it tactfully, shows that you know how this game works. I mean, if you actually spend the time to, because I ask for a paragraph. So Sierra's right. I ask, if a student asks for a recommendation letter, I say, write the middle paragraph of what you did that you're most proud of. And then I go and I hack the crud out of it. Because, the parts that I think are strong or reminding me of something else. But just to get my drawer open on this student and their history so I can write the letter, I need that paragraph. And if you can subtly say in your first email, remember that I did this and I did this and we did this thing and remember this thing worked out and we struggled with this. Quickly write that down. That shows the faculty that you're kind of there to help them write a really strong one.
Okay, question from Wanjun Suk to the professors. What are the best ways for applicants to show their accomplishments in both research and internship other than discussing them in their personal statement? And for me, I would say, you can always put them in your resume or CV, especially if it's something like a presentation or a publication. And if you have a good relationship with one of your reference letter writers, you can, presumably that person would also bring up your accomplishments and your successes in their reference letter.
Yeah, the easy answer is have accomplishments, right? And if you have accomplishments, they may well be listable items in a CV, paper, presentation, award. Don't forget too that it's 2020, and not only 2020, it's COVID 2020. So we're doing everything social, online, whatever. Make a YouTube video of your O-REU research project and post that. Or I don't know what MSDN is doing with this REU, but my student made the most amazing update video I've ever seen the other day. I don't know how she's going to be able to share that, but let's say that she can share that, right? And throw a URL in the letter or something in the email to the faculty. It's technical presentation, technical sharing is super important. And so if you can make there are lots of ways to share in 2020 besides just writing it in a letter. And something like a little summary video is an easy way.
I absolutely agree with that. That, in the past, I've had a couple of applications that I've reviewed that have had links to videos posted online. It makes an enormous difference. All of you guys are doing a 10-minute final research update on your O-REU projects. I would suggest plan for that update to be something that you can put into your resume. My hope is that if all of you guys agree, we'll actually put all those videos up on a YouTube channel, which we will make public. If you say no, I want to opt out, we're not going to force you to do it. But if you agree, then we'll make it public, and we can link it to your profile on the O-REU webpage as well. So it'll become something that's discoverable via Google.
Let me amplify on this, Michael, that the videos are impressive, the ones that at least I have seen from our students, and that would be the best marketing tools for them in the near term. And I also have seen other students who developed tools like design tools, machine learning tool for databases. Those also you can use as examples of your work. That is not a presentation or a publication. It is a useful tool that others may be using, and that will show your technical capabilities. So these are very good points that have been raised.
That's a CV listable item. Software tools or something is a CV item that depending on your format, that's a common one to list. I wrote this code, it's on, and here's the GitHub link, right? So those of you that are more theoretical, that's right.
Okay, we are at the end of our time for the panel discussion, and it works out very nicely because that was the last question. So we're exactly on time. Would any of the panel members want to say anything very, very brief in closing?
My major comment that I'll make briefly is that what I see a lot of people do, and my comments have indicated this, is they approach the application to grad school like it's every other thing that you've been successful at. Y'all are the most successful people kind of in the country academically, right? That's why you're here. That's why you're on this call. You've got the scholarships, right? You won those. You got into your undergrad institution, right? You've written the personal essays. You've won awards in your college. You've done all of that already. This isn't like that. This isn't the same old panel reviewing the same old essays. It's going at the end of the day to be a person who's going to decide to invest an immense amount of time and a limited amount of resources from their pool into you. So you're talking to a person now. And of course you may need the MSEN committee to pair you with that person, but approach it like I'm making an investment in myself by partnering with this individual. This is why we should work together. That's the story you're telling. Not I'm the greatest student that's applying to this program and I need a scholarship while you're at it. But I like to do this. I see that you're good at this. Let's work together to do this, right? Is the story. And it's very different than every other thing that you've done from the time you were in, high school till now. It's a very different process, and just keep that in mind.
I'll just say, get ready to read like you've never read before and write like you've never written before. Just be prepared for that that's what grad school is all about.
Okay, well, so thank you very much to all of our committee members, Sierra, Jalen, Darren, Svetlana, and thank you to all of the students who asked questions. We're now 4 minutes past the hour, so we're going to transition from the panel discussion to our next item on the agenda, which is a presentation on the early admission procedure for O-REU students that has been opened up here at Texas A&M. I am very happy to welcome Dr. Shannon Walton, who is the Director of Recruiting, Professional Development, and Student Success here in the College of Engineering at Texas A&M, as well as Larissa Johnson, who is a Recruiting Coordinator. And I believe that they have a presentation that they will be sharing with us.
That is correct.
Okay.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us, and hopefully we will shed some light on a wonderful opportunity that's available for you all, O-REU participants. So can everyone see my screen? Thumbs up, something. Okay, there we go. Great. So brief introduction, my name is Dr. Shannon Walton. You've heard my title. For those who may not be familiar with me, I'm a 3-time graduate of Texas A&M University in the College of Engineering. So I know very near and dear everything that you are probably have experienced up until this point. Today, I'm going to give you some information about the early graduate admissions program. Because we're online, I won't necessarily be able to talk and navigate the chat. So if we could save all the questions to the end, that would be great. But please take this time to absorb the information, ask any questions that you may have. And hopefully this is an opportunity that is very attractive to you, and we can help matriculate you into graduate studies here at the university. So as you all know, we're definitely living in an interesting time, right? And our early graduate admissions program had actually been halted for this year because there were not a lot of, to our knowledge, structured summer REU programs taking place. But Michael reached out to us, and we were more than elated to open this opportunity to you guys.
As well. So thank you.
No problem, thank you. Well, first of all, let me change the screen format. And are we still on board? Everybody sees everything? Great. Okay, so the purpose of the early admissions so let me go back. This particular program is structured only for those students who are engaged in a structured summer undergraduate research program, right? And so it's an opportunity where rising seniors can apply for early admissions, early graduate admissions into Texas A&M University. And in this case, that's fall 2021. Now, I did say rising seniors, right? As I have been made aware, we have some rising juniors and maybe even some rising sophomores in some cases. You are not left out, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, but no, this is an opportunity for all of you guys, regardless of where you are in your, in terms of your degree classification, if you are interested in graduate studies here at Texas A&M University, and I'd like to think all of you guys are. Again, with this program, rising seniors will have the ability to apply for graduate studies early and have that decision on whether or not they have been admitted into a graduate program here at the university by September, so a couple of months, right? There are, so you guys have the opportunity to apply to any of the participating departments, and we'll talk about those in just a minute. And once you receive that admissions decision, you will have until April 15th of 2021 to actually accept or decline, but I don't think that will be the case. I'm optimistic here. So even if you were to receive the admissions and you want to shop around, which, you know, that's your prerogative, but A&M probably is the place that you want to be. You have until April 15th, 2021 to confirm or deny that decision. So why is this a great thing? You know, what does this do for you? It clears up money. Well, the motivation for this was to clear up money and time for recruiting activities and to expand our pool of high quality domestic graduate students. As a participant in the summer REU, you guys have gone through a review process. We know that you are some of the best and the brightest that we want to encourage to come to graduate school here at the university. This is an excellent way for A&M to get their eyes on excellent researchers that are out there. And right now you have faculty members that you are working with as mentors that can vouch for you, right? And early admissions programs are becoming a national best practice. Not much different than, you know, internships and different things. Now the trend is becoming that before you leave that internship opportunity or whatever the case may be, you know, some companies are making full offers to students. And so this program is structured much along the same lines. So we're going to go over benefits for students, and then we have some things that are listed in terms of benefits for the university or department, but we're going to focus on you guys today. So by September of 2020, you could possibly have an admissions decision in your pocket before you even get started really good with your senior year, right? You can use that time that you could have otherwise used for applying for graduate school to target different funding opportunities, to kind of focus on, you know, being a very strong student your senior year in undergraduate. And this would also give you an opportunity to be highly considered for some university level programs, fellowship programs here at the university. And so it kind of rises you to the top in terms of funding, university level funding here at the university. The departments who have agreed to participate, and this was, again, thanks to Michael's effort and some persistence, we have aerospace, chemical, civil, electrical and computer, material science and engineering, mechanical, and nuclear engineering, all willing to participate in this effort for you this summer. A brief description of the timeline. So we're in the month of July, right? And right now we're actually going through the listed informational session. In August is when the applications will be due to my office, which we call OGAPS for short. At that point, we will, package all materials that will be due to us, and we'll talk about those materials in a few minutes, and we will forward them to the departments of interest. We will provide the departments with a deadline, and actually they already know the deadline, but they will begin to notify us of their admissions decisions. So whether or not they will accept you into admissions for their particular programs. In September, OGAPS will notify you of the department's decision to accept you. Now, what else will be required is that although you will be accepted into the university, we will require you to go into the admission application system to submit a framework. And so what I mean by a framework is that the typical very in-depth application process will be shortened for your benefit. So you will go and put in like your demographic information, very basic information so that a record would exist for you, but you wouldn't have to worry about, submitting a letter, your references, another statement of interest and different things like that. So it would be a very shortened application for your benefit, just so we would have it on record. And another point, another high point is that there will be no application fee for you to apply. If you get admitted into the university, my office will absorb that fee. Sometime between November and January, and it varies for every department, departments will officially enter their admissions decision into the official system, and you will receive your official letter of admissions. And that's just a formal process that goes on behind the scene. But by September, you will have a formal decision. And so I don't want to make it seem like it's not formal. You will have a formal binding decision on whether or not the admitting department accepts you for admissions into a graduate program here at the university. And I'm sorry if I'm talking too fast, so please forgive me. So now let's transition into the application materials that are required for the early graduate admissions program. So an official transcript, and I use official lightly because the whole premise of this program is for it to be expedited in the sense that you could use the same application materials that were submitted for your admissions into your summer REU, right? So from what I understand, some of you may have originally applied for USRG, a traditional REU, and I say traditional in a sense of face-to-face, right? COVID had other plans, and that's okay. You can use the transcript that you use for your application materials. You also have the opportunity to use whatever letters of recommendations you use for those original programs. However, here's what I suggest. Right now, you are engaged with a faculty member, right? As a mentor in the lab, whatever the case may be. That is your key advocate for being able to talk about your performance, your skill set, and, the decision of whether or not you would be a good applicant for graduate school at the university. And so I would highly recommend that you reach out to your current mentor, your current faculty member that you are working with for a letter of recommendation. These are people that you should be interacting with pretty regularly, considering you're in this summer program. And so things like, being familiar with them are not areas of concern, right? And so again, I would, strongly encourage you to reach out to your faculty mentor for the letter of recommendation. The next requirement would be a statement of purpose. And I'm pretty sure, kind of listening to the end of the previous panel, that some of this information has already been discussed with you guys, but if not, feel free to reach out to my office and we will, support giving you some pointers on how to do those things. The next item is a resume or CV, right? And I also just wanted to make one thing clear. Although we're doing this expedited review process for you guys in terms of the early graduate admissions program, if a department has policies in place where they decide that they want to interview you, they may choose to do so as part of your application process. If you are accepted, You will be required to complete the online engineering class application no later than September the 28th. Again, this will be a very augmented process for you guys so that you will have a record in the system that can be linked to your official records. Now, we encourage you to take the GRE by November 2020. The GRE is not required for your application into Texas A&M University through the early graduate admissions program, right? But that doesn't necessarily have a bearing on how different fellowships may consider GRE scores. And I'm talking more so national or international fellowships. Right now, you know, we're in a COVID world, so a lot of things are being augmented for that purpose. But, you know, some fellowship programs and different things work by different rules. And so that you could have the opportunity to be as competitive as possible for different fellowship opportunities, we encourage you to take it, but it's not required as part of your application process, okay? Applications will be due to my office by 5 p.m. on Monday, August 3rd. The address to submit that application to, and when I say application, it's the components we discussed a little bit earlier: the statement of purpose, the letter of reference, the official transcript. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. Oh, your CV or your resume will be due by August 3rd to the email address that's listed, okay? That was pretty quick and to the point. Again, my name is Dr. Shannon Walton. Miss Larissa Johnson is online as well and will be a resource for you guys. And I guess I can stop right there and take any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you very much. I would recommend, so first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that, I'm going to ask, first of all, whether we can get a copy of these slides to post them.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll post the slides for those of you who want to peruse them again. The link where you ask students to submit their materials, I'm going to copy that link along with all of the materials that are required into the Slack channel. So those of you who are interested in this will be able to look at the Slack channel and you know, find all the sort of basic information on you know, on what you need to submit. I'll also put 5 p.m. on Monday, August 3rd into the O-REU calendar. So that's going to be in there. And I'll also post the sort of the contact information and everything else that you need to know into the O-REU calendar. So I encourage anyone now who has a question, please unmute yourself and ask your question. I think that you know, hopefully we'll be able to make it work that way. So let's give it a go. Anybody have a question, please unmute yourself and ask. Oh, I've already started getting questions into chat, so let me actually just read them out.
Okay, sounds good.
Permadura Balzac to everybody. Do you have guidance on what you're looking for in terms of length, for example, for the statement of purpose?
No, there's no minimum or no maximum. Actually, you can do a Google search in terms of elements of a very strong statement of purpose, whatever the case may be. Traditionally, I mean, if you want some traditional measures, I've seen them maybe on average about 2 pages. I wouldn't necessarily suggest anything longer than 3 pages because by that time we're writing a book. But the idea is that you are able to kind of clearly articulate your desire for further studies in graduate schools, maybe things that have prompted that interest in grad school. If you have an opportunity to tell about, you know, your previous research experience, whether it's this current REU or any other additional experiences, interns, whatever the case may be, this is your opportunity to tell your story, right? Also, if you have some research interests and ideas that have been prompted by your past experiences, this will be a great opportunity to craft that information now. This is your chance to further sell yourself as a credible or competitive applicant for graduate studies here at the university.
Next question from Ashley Abbott. You mentioned the opportunity for early admittance for people who are not rising seniors. Could you tell us more about that?
Thank you, Ashley. I actually forgot about that. So what we do is not a very automated process. What we do, and maybe what will work best, is if I worked with Michael in future years, or let's say, you know, come this spring, to be able to reach back out to the participants who are rising juniors right now and are rising sophomores, if there are any, to see if that interest still exists. And from there, we do have to go back every year to try to determine whether or not the departments of interest will be looking to participate. So it's a very manual process, but what we will do for you guys specifically is make sure that we are touching base early mid-spring to see if the interest is still there for the upcoming year, so that we can reach out to your department of interest and engage on whether or not they are looking to participate, and then it will be a similar process for you.
So in summary, it's basically the same thing that you see now,
just forecasted.
But whenever you're about to be a rising senior.
Exactly.
Okay, question from Adira Balzac. Also, are the things like the recommendation letters just going to be taken from our O-REU applications, since I think our recommenders just sent them directly? Go ahead.
Oh, it can be. And I know, Michael, you and I had some conversation about how best to do this. And so I don't know if you were going to take part in the process or.
Yeah, let me address that question. So
okay.
I would say two things. First of all, the strongest reference letter that you're going to get for this particular application is from your O-REU mentor. And the reason why is because that person is a colleague of whoever's on the admission committee. Right, so that reference letter is going to be a lot stronger than somebody who is at another university, you know, whom they might not know. So I would suggest asking your O-REU mentor, you know, assuming that things went well, obviously, and you guys are all sort of, you know, happy with the work that you did, ask them to write the reference letter for you. That's number one. Number two, yes, we did ask for letters of reference for the O-REU, but because things were going so fast, and we needed to complete the application process really, really fast. When we sent them the requests, we said, you don't have to write us a full formal letter. Just send us an email with a few sentences telling us, you know, are you impressed with this student? Do you think they're going to do a good job in the O-REU, right? So we basically tried to keep it as brief as possible because we were trying to launch this thing so fast. So what I suggest is we can certainly transfer, you know, one of those letters if you want, or if you prefer, you can go back to one of your advisors and ask them to write you a longer letter, right? Basically, a more detailed letter, you know, that talks about your relationship a little bit more and goes into a little bit more detail, since you have a little bit more time, right? I mean, this the due date isn't until August 3rd, so you know you've got. Well, I guess you don't have that much more time. You know, you have what, how much, what is it today? 2 weeks? Okay, so maybe just a little bit over 2 weeks. So it's not a whole lot of time, but it's, you know, there's a little bit of time that you know, you can do that. The other thing, yeah, I mean, I think that's the bottom line, right? And I'm sorry, Shannon, can you remind me, are we asking for 2 letters or 3 letters?
2. Mm-hmm.
2 letters. Okay, so I would say one from your O-REU mentor, and then whatever letter, you know, strongest letter you think would come from one of your other letter writers. And if you want, you know, I'm not going to show you the letters, you know, that anybody sent to us, but if you want, you can ask me if the letter is strong. Okay, I have no qualms about looking at the letter and telling you whether it was strong. You know, and that's information that you might find useful for your other applications too. Okay, question from Matthew Lichtenberg. Is it possible to be considered for multiple departments? I am interested in semiconductors and electronic materials, some of which is in materials engineering and some of which is in electrical engineering.
Yes, it is. That's the easy answer.
So in that case, when applying, a student would indicate which departments they're interested in, and that application would get forwarded to multiple departments.
Yes, and so one thing I was thinking while we were talking, again, we have crafted this or tried to transpose it just to fit the O-REU, And so what me and Larissa will work on is maybe a cover letter or a cover document so that it's clear, you know, who you are, what programs, if it's more than one that you're interested in, to be the front pager to your, you know, your packet of materials. And that way, you know, for those of you who may be interested in more than one program, it would be clear to us, you know, to make duplicate copies of your packet to share.
Another question of confirmation from Adira. So to confirm, we should have our recommenders send the letters directly, not for us to have to forward the letters. Yeah, I think so. I think that really what you should provide us is the contact information for your reference letter writers. Or should we ask the reference letter writers to just send to an email, Shannon?
They can send it directly to the email that's listed. And so if you will allow me to do this, Michael, when we finish, we will get you a one-pager so that all of the information that's necessary, in addition to the cover letter that I mentioned, would be on one page, and the students can easily navigate how to submit that information.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Okay, question from Joe Calkins. I'll graduate after fall 2021. Is there any chance that I could apply to this to start in the spring? And I'm guessing you mean spring 2022, Joe? Yes.
Yes.
Spring 2022.
Oh, okay. So yes, but I don't encourage it. And we don't encourage a lot of our students to, especially in engineering, well, engineering being one of the programs, to target a spring date. I mean, it's perfectly fine, especially if you have been working with a professor and can secure funds. But the majority of fellowship and other funding decisions, the majority of them take place in the fall. And so you will have access to a very limited funding pool. But if by chance you are a millionaire and you can pay for this right out and have no problems or concerns, you know, that's fine too. But we typically encourage students to target fall semesters if that is an option that works for you.
Let me elaborate on that a little bit. So I'm the graduate program director for materials science, and what we usually do is we get, you know, the majority of our applications for fall start dates. But then occasionally we'll have either students who want to start in a spring semester, or who were originally planning to start in the fall and for whatever reason have to defer for one semester because, you know, some personal issue, or maybe they can't get a visa if they're international, or something else. And in that situation, we basically treat those cases we treat those situations on a case-by-case basis, right? If we see, you know, this person is already paired up with an advisor, the advisor's fine with pushing back the start date by a semester, we just okay it, right? We say, okay, fine, so then you're deferred. If you start in the spring, you know, as Dr. Walton said, you know, there are certain fellowships, diversity fellowships, and merit fellowships and other things that you might miss out on. Right? So I think there's an advantage to starting in the fall just because of that. But, you know, but that said, again, you know, we'll work with you on a case-by-case basis if a spring start date is better for you. Okay, just Shannon, could I ask you to just remind me, the components are resume, CV, personal statement, contact info for 2 reference letter writers, official transcript, and departments. Indicate which departments?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so for your, and I guess for the transcript here, we say official transcript. For the O-REU application, we did not require an official transcript. We just had an unofficial transcript.
So it will be the same transcript.
It'll be the same transcript. If it's unofficial and it's in the O-REU package, we will use that transcript. So you don't have to get that second transcript. unless for whatever reason the transcript that we have on file for you is, you know, incomplete or something like that. In that case, we may circle back to you and ask for you to provide, you know, an updated transcript. Okay, I just posted all of the bare bones information to the Slack channel. I'm going to post it on the calendar. There's going to be a one-page description that comes from Dr. Walton, which I'll also forward to you, and you will also be getting the slides on the Google Drive. Okay.
No more questions? You guys are pretty quiet for a Friday at 4:30.
So for some of our students, it's 5:30.
Well, okay.
All right, guys. Well, thank you all very much. Thank you, Dr. Walton and Larissa, for joining us.
No problem.
And hope everybody has a great weekend.
All right. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.